Good morning. Thank you for joining us here today for the open forum on addressing service delivery barriers for diabetes and staff burnout during COVID-19. This session today is presented by the IDHC in partnership with the Indigenous Primary Health Care Council. The panel came about in response to a request from Indigenous Primary Health Care Council, who shared concerns expressed by frontline workers in Indigenous communities in relation to barriers to providing care, particularly preventive and early care, to clients with diabetes since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. We learned that many frontline workers were feeling that clients were losing out on basic care, which might prevent diabetes complications. Many frontline workers were also citing concerns about the increased stress and risk of burnout they were feeling, in part because of these challenges in providing preventive care for their clients with diabetes and other clients in their community during the pandemic. So while we know that there may not be easy answers to a lot of these concerns, we've convened this panel today in hopes that we can share our knowledge and share our experiences and offer suggestions that might help frontline workers and communities to better support their clients while also maintaining their own wellness. We have with us Grandmother Renee Thomas Hill, who is of the Cayuga Nation Bear Clan from Six Nations of the Grand River Territory. Renee is one of our beloved elders here at the IDHC. And as a Haudenosaunee woman, Renee is charged to pass on the teachings of the Haudenosaunee way of life and the message of peace, power, and righteousness. Renee shares as an Indigenous woman, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, educator, historian, artisan, storyteller, traditional counselor, and agriculturalist. Her walk in life is to share awareness and the uplifting of the spirit through the teachings of our mother, the earth, and understandings of a good mind. Welcome, Renee. We also have with us Lindsay Kosh. Lindsay is the Foot Care Program Coordinator for the Indigenous Diabetes Health Circle. Lindsay is a graduate of Brock University and has been with the IDHC since 2008, during which time she has enjoyed providing diabetes services to the Indigenous community. Lindsay was raised on the north shores of Georgian Bay in the small Indigenous village of Jabonane, colonially known as Killarney, Ontario. Lindsay belongs to the Wahnapitae First Nation and currently lives and works out of Sudbury. She has Scottish and Anishinaabe ancestry and has spent most of her earlier years learning and living off the land. We also have with us Lorraine McLeod. Lorraine McLeod is a wife, mother, and a grandmother to 5 children. She is a member of the Missamak Cree Nation, Cross Lake, and grew up in the small community of Wabowden in northern Manitoba. Lorraine has been working as a registered nurse for over 38 years, and she is currently working with the Diabetes Integration Project and is the Associate Director of Diabetes Care and Research with the First Nations Health and Social Secretariat of Manitoba. She has been working in First Nations health for 21 years in various capacities. Lorraine is committed to working towards improving health services and the health status of First Nations population in Manitoba. And finally, we have with us Dr. Stuart Harris. Good morning, Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris is a professor in the Department of Family Medicine with cross appointments in the Department of Epidemiology and Biostatistics and the Division of Endocrinology and Metabolism of the Schulich School of Medicine and Dentistry at Western University. Dr. Harris is also a research scientist at the Lawson Health Research Institute. He was reappointed to a 3rd term in 2019 to the position of Diabetes Canada Chair in Diabetes Management and holds the Ian McWhinney Chair of Family Medicine Studies at Western University. Dr. Harris is also the lead physician and medical director of the Primary Care Diabetes Support Program at St. Joseph's Healthcare in London, Ontario, an integrated team-based diabetes clinic for disenfranchised and marginalized populations, which he founded in 2007. Dr. Harris's research program focuses on 3 priority areas: diabetes research with Indigenous peoples, hypoglycemia research, and clinical trials. Dr. Harris has published over 270 articles in peer-reviewed journals, and on July 1st, 2015, was appointed the Order of Canada for his contributions to the development of strategies to manage and reduce diabetes in Aboriginal communities and other vulnerable populations. Welcome to you all. It's so exciting to have such an established group of presenters here with us this morning. So I would like to start the panel off this morning by inviting Grandmother Ine to first welcome us and open the meeting and to speak for 5 or 6 minutes about what she has seen in terms of diabetes prevention and care and self-care for frontline workers during this pandemic. Thank you, Renee.
Thank you, Jessica. To all of you for being part of a beautiful day. And that's how we are to look at every day is beautiful, because this is, we were given words to start our way in a good way. And we always say, we need to bring the spirit up. And so we always put good words out there. And so, good day, everyone. Good day, good day, good day. So we are here to start our day. And we do that by acknowledging our Mother, the Earth. And that is so important, by always acknowledging her, because she gives us unconditional love. And so with that, we want to always thank her for all those things that she has been sharing her love through her creation, and we like to thank her. And traditionally it would take almost 2 hours, so I would take up the whole session of just giving thanks, but I will do a short version. And because so de tino alada ni staha yon hanzade, de tino lado hande raso, de tino lada John Hekwa, de tino lada gai so, de tino lada garunda son tana where is so, de tino lada otsi noa so, de tino lada kanyandiro, de tino lada zigadni gora, de tino lada itisoti roti wares, de tino lada gaeli ni walage. De chido alada ne sonkotsia de ganiga lakwa. De tino alada ne yonke sota sota galakwa. De chido alada ne ogistica roni. De chido alada ne sonkoindiso. You may have noticed my voice gets shaky because it's filled with so much love and appreciation for all creation. And when you feel love, it is amazing. That is one of the things that builds up our immune system. And so as a grandmother and a great-grandmother and as a mother, I have been surrounded in love by our community and our family. And it was because of the grandmothers that made us resilient. Grandmothers have given us that, as you say, that spirit. Don't give up, because in our creation story, it shows how this woman came to I'm from Skyworld, and she came and she had nothing. And she had to learn how to pick up and become a mother, because she came here with child. And who was there to support her was the animals. And so we always like to acknowledge that journey and remember when. And so when we hear those stories, remember when. And when we look at our grandparents, look how long they have been here. You see, it was because of that first woman, we say, because of her resilience to get back up. And it was because of the animals that spoke to her and said, don't give up. Don't give up. We're here. We're here. And so this is what I always remind the people today. Don't give up. And that's what our duty is as grandmothers. Don't give up. You just get up and shake it off. And that's what the animals have shown us. You see, whenever they go through rough times, they know how to get up, and they do things to keep that spirit up. And so in our days of long ago, we were doing many things, but today we have become so, as they say, laid back because of so modernization. And this is what the old people talk about. We talk about how we need to keep our people motivated so that resilient is strong. And when we have become idle, then it becomes stagnant. And so this is why there is a lot of stress. And this is so important to you to remember. Every part of your body was made to move. So the best way to start moving, even a chair, you rotate your hips, move your legs, move them up and down, move them around. because that's the way the Creator made it possible for all the stress to be released. And the best way is dancing. Dancing, listening to music, it brings back. How many of you can remember a song when you were a teenager and how good you felt? And I see people, when you play some music, their feet are just going. And so this is another way of doing, moving your body, keeping that going. And so I've always taught by my grandma that when things overwhelm you sometimes, dance, dance. And that's what that woman did, Sky Woman did. When she got up, she brushed herself off. She realized she had to inspire, to put that seed in all of us. And what she did, she got up and she danced. She danced, and this is what we do. We do Askani, we do woman's dance, and that is to honor that woman that made that movement to get up and dance. And so I'm always reminded when I'm overwhelmed, when I'm feeling, I feel just like everyone else, but I take care and say, okay, I got to do something about it. And so I'll get up and move. My grandma called it putting. There's always something to do. So make sure that these bodies are made for movement. Every part of us. This is why we got joints. This is why we have movement. This is what the Creator created. And if you and our language, if you ever say you're bored, it's your body speaking to your body needs to be moving. And that is doing. And so whenever you're feeling down, I know I have family members that are in diabetes. I said, do something. Let's do something. Let's be creative. I know I have to get you out of that first. So let's hear some music. Let's hear some music. Or tell me, one of the things I really recommend to even the frontline workers is to talk, to bring that out, to bring it out. Go sit in a car and just scream. Just let it out, because you're not supposed to hold in all those emotions. And the other part is we're very blessed because IDHC has given many of us the opportunity to be here for you, to call and tell us of your day, to help you through the day. We're here. Call Grandma, 911. Call Grandma and say, hey, I need your help. I need your support. That's okay. You're not weak. You are doing traditionally what you are to do, and that is ask for help. Ask for help. This is what we call a sharing circle. Our people had sharing circles to help them to be well. And so to all of you that are out there, remember, we are here all together. And we all have to be, as they say, remove the stress from we have a choice. And my choice, I hope, is to always be moving, so that if you see me, I'm moving. You see me doing, it's so important to be motivated. And so I eat the right kind of foods. I try not to eat the foods that put you to sleep. When you eat a big supper and next thing you know, you're falling asleep. I have to eat the food that's going to keep me going. And so I'll have wild meat, I'll have plant life. And so these are the things that helps me to be motivated. And today I am very blessed because my grandma taught me that. She says, you want to be clear-minded, you want to be healthy in your heart, you have to learn how to eat those plants again. And so I'm in my 70s and I don't take aspirins. And so I'm very blessed because of what my grandma had taught me, how to be resilient. And so it's very simple. Be doing. This is why our people did beadwork, they did carving. They were artists because they were always doing. They were very creative. And so because we have been giving opportunities like this now, you always said, oh, I wish I could have just stayed home and did something else. Well, the Creator answered your prayer, and now you have time for self-care. Look after yourself. I know this Zoom is another process that we all were frustrated. Believe me, the grandmas were more frustrated than you. You, the younger ones, just kind of zip like that. But we had to, I had to smudge it, and I had to so that I could get through it, the stress. And so I want to say with much kindness and goodness, the words that we use. I'm here for you. If you need support, there are many of us that are there to answer that call. And so I think we should have a grandma hotline. So for all of you that are out there and need support, we're here. To all of you frontline workers, because grandma knows how to take care of herself. And so I'm here for you. Thank you.
Yawa. Yawa, Grandmother Renee, and I will speak a little bit later about how people can access the services of those grandmothers and aunties through our elders supports on Wednesdays and Fridays. With that, I'd like to turn things over to Dr. Harris. Welcome, Dr. Harris. I wonder if you'd like to tell us a little bit about some of the things you've seen and experienced in relations to challenges perhaps in providing diabetes care during the pandemic.
Sure. Good morning, everyone, and it's an honor to be invited to join this illustrious panel and share whatever experience and expertise I have. I've been involved in working with Indigenous Canadians, First Nations communities since the early 90s when I worked and lived in Sioux Lookout in Northern Ontario and coordinated healthcare delivery to the 30 fly-in reserves that are in that area. And that's actually when I stumbled across diabetes back in the early days to try and have committed most of my career to try and understand why this is happening, what is happening, and strategies to try and mitigate the terrible impact it's having on individuals and communities. And so over the course of the last 30 years, I've worked with roughly 50 to 75 First Nations communities across the country on community-driven strategies that target this devastating epidemic that continues unabated, and we now are seeing the intersection of two terrible epidemics, that of COVID-19 and diabetes. And we know that people with diabetes, if they get hospitalized with COVID, have much worse outcomes compared to people without diabetes. It's actually number 2 on the list as a predictor of bad outcomes. And so all of you working in the communities have, an added responsibility and challenge to help yourselves if you have diabetes, or help or take as best care of you as you can in the midst of all of the challenges that all of you are being burdened with. A big part of the focus of our recent work has been to help develop communities using quality improvement strategies that have been well established across the world, that work with clinics and healthcare leadership in communities to develop strategies on how they can problem solve the many different challenges that feel overwhelmed, make one feel overwhelmed, and communities feeling overwhelmed as to what do they do and how do they target. And so if any of you are interested in any of these strategies, because they're now developed for online support, just feel free to reach out. I think my contact will be provided through Jessica following this, but we've had really good success in developing community-based strategies. And one of them also includes developing a chronic disease registry, which focuses on diabetes, but now has a component to include COVID, so you can track people if they have both. And this is helping communities set up a registry to be able to track and survey quality of care measures to ensure that people aren't falling through the cracks and you're identifying those who need the most help. So happy to share any of that with you afterwards. You know, my clinic, as you, and thanks for that very generous introduction, Jessica. The clinic we run here in London has continued to operate throughout all of this terrible ordeal we've been living through with the last year, even when we had the shutdown back in March and April. And it, I'd say about 70% of our care right now is virtual. It's very frustrating because part of the good clinical paradigm is to see people and talk with them and have conversations and to help you understand what is going on. And Lindsay, you might be interested that our clinic includes a wound care program. And it's been interesting to see what's happened with COVID with wound care, because some people whose wounds were never healing because they're stuck in their house and not walking about, we've had actually quite dramatic improvements in wound care. And the flip side is that we've seen much worse outcomes because people aren't accessing care. So I think one of the challenges facing people living with diabetes, indigenous or non-indigenous, is access to care. Because of the restrictions, people can't access laboratory work. Many clinics are only operating virtually. And people are really getting lost through the cracks. So for chronic diseases like diabetes, in which the outcomes are best for people who are seen and monitored on a regular basis, to see how they're doing with their blood sugar control, their blood pressure, are they developing any wounds, how are their kidneys functioning, are they getting regular blood tests to kind of help monitor that, are they getting the support and encouragement and reinforcement of their approaches to managing their diabetes, whether it's lifestyle or medications. A lot of that has just either stopped in many locales or has really broken down. And I think one of the challenges we're going to have, even with the miracles of modern day immunizations, we're frustrated right now with the access we're having, but we will be swimming in immunizations come this spring. There's so many that are coming, and it's a modern day medical miracle that we have these within under a year. Usually take 10 years to develop these, and they look really good, really encouraging. But we are still going to be living with the realities of COVID, which is not going to go away with the vaccines. This whole issue around the need to protect people. We're not sure how long vaccine protection will work. We know for 6 months for sure, but it may be an ongoing annual type of vaccine that people will need, like the flu shot, to take care of the mutations or the changes that are happening in the COVID virus. But we know COVID is here to stay for the foreseeable future. So as we hopefully emerge out of this second wave somewhat or not, we have to come up with strategies to help look after people with diabetes while this is all happening. And that starts at the community level and with the leadership and the support of workers, healthcare workers, who are exhausted by all of this. So we need almost new ways to kind of tackle this. And that's what we've done in our clinic. That's what we've developed with our experience in the programs we've developed for communities. I'm just submitted a manuscript looking at the impact of COVID on diabetes care from people's perspective. We have a big study going in the United States. And early on in the disease, we already were seeing people with issues around food insecurity, people saving their medications and not taking them because they couldn't access their healthcare team, not being able to do the proper lifestyle, people running out of food and money and healthcare supplies because of COVID. And that's going to stay with us for a while. So I think this is a great idea to have this, to allow this forum for people to share ideas and their challenges. And hopefully coming out of this will be some important tips or opportunities to get rejuvenated in your strategies and your belief that you can do something, because that's the most important thing at the end of the day, is that knowing that you can help people and change the what seems to be this terribly negative ongoing helplessness that COVID-19 situation has put us all in.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harris. That's a great perspective. I am going to open it up to to the participants now to drop some questions in the chat box if they have any. Both Dr. Harris and Grandmother Renee will have to leave us before 10. So if you do have pressing questions for them, I encourage you to pop them in the chat box right now. But we do have one question lined up from the beginning that says, as a person who is living with diabetes, I wonder about food sovereignty. How we are able to supply foods that do not promote diabetes. And I think that speaks a little bit to both what Dr. Harris said about kind of creative strategies for ensuring that people have access to food and things, as well as what we're hearing a lot in the Indigenous community about taking back ownership of the food supply. And so I'd invite either of you, Grandmother Renee or Dr. Harris, if you have something to respond to. Okay, Renee?
In our community, they promote garden planting box, and in our community, garden has come back greatly, and they also, because of those of that opportunity, we also have a market in our community now. We don't have to go outside our community. And today from 3 o'clock till 5, they have for a donation of $10, you get a bag. You get your supplements, what you're going to need for like a week. We're returning back to our original foods, the root foods, and that is like turnips and parsnips and cauliflower and all those, like those plant lives. And so cabbage, the food that we need for winter to be making soups. And so, and they also leave recipes in those boxes. They'll have like a package to make a meal and you can make a soup, and it'll be for a week. So that is one of the things that they have been doing here on Six Nation.
Yeah, that's something we've also been working on here at IDHC, is looking at that wraparound care. So not just providing a foot care kit per se, but also trying to provide some access to something like a wild rice salad or something like that, that we can bundle and ensure that people have access to those different aspects of care.
I just also, in the past, we've had Wellness Wednesdays, where our cook, she made amazing recipes out of the sales that was on sales at the grocery store, and she showed everyone how to work with the budget, what the budget they have, and created very unique meals for and supplement. I mean, substituting potatoes and making it more healthier for all the communities. And they were learning how. I remember when we first started out, they didn't want that kind of food. They would, but now they're looking forward to when we had Wellness Wednesday. They were enjoying the meals that we had, because it was a variety of different taste buds. And so this is what we were doing too.
Wonderful. Okay, I don't see any questions in the chat box. Dr. Harris, mindful of time, I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to speak to before I introduce Lorraine.
No, I think this is a great opportunity, and these kinds of discussion forums are really important for people to feel that their issues are being heard. Solutions will always happen at the community level, and it's up to community leadership and healthcare providers to come up with innovative strategies that are unique to each community. And what a community in a coastal community in British Columbia is dealing with is quite different than a northern fly-in community and a southern community. And I think that at the end of the day, it's local strategies that are unique to the community's challenges, that need to be supported, and these kinds of forums, I think, are quite helpful. I'm always happy to answer questions that people may have. I come from a medical perspective. I actually have great belief and confidence in some of the new therapies that we have that save people's kidneys, hearts, and brains, and sustain people's lives. And I think that those combined with traditional lifestyles, traditional foods, indigenous heritage and knowledge is the way forward. But again, always coming down to the OCAP principles and ensuring that there's community ownership and direction that leads these strategies. I've seen it work. I believe in it, and I think it's one of the key strategies moving forward as we continue to live with for the near future with diabetes and COVID.
Wonderful, thank you. I do have some questions coming in here, but I would like to make sure all our panelists get the opportunity to introduce themselves here. So Lorraine, I'd like to welcome you to weigh in on the conversation as well now.
Good morning, everybody. I'm coming to you from Treaty 1 territory, Winnipeg, Manitoba. I reside in northern Manitoba, though in Treaty 5 territory. But I've been working with the Diabetes Integration Project now since 2011, and the project started in 2008. And it is about delivering care and services to 20 communities for adults living with type 2 diabetes. Recently, there was a report that came out of Manitoba, was a deliverable that the government wanted to see what diabetes was like in Manitoba. And the last report actually where we took a really good look was in 2002. And what we were actually seeing is that instead of closing the gap is actually widening. We're seeing now children with type 2 diabetes, 25% more in First Nations population. So we're seeing a huge increase in diabetes in children. And listening to the grandmothers and the elders speaking, what I've heard Grandmother Renee speak is really foundational to what needs to be done in regards to diabetes, and it's about moving. We had our own little project here looking at physical activity and the benefits of exercise, and had one of our grandmothers here talk about exercise, and she said, well, there's no real word about exercise, it's about moving, it's about how you keep the blood moving. So I really like that description, because people understand that when I'm walking with my grandchildren, I'm in fact moving. And at that moment, I'm not only walking with them, I'm actually teaching them about the trees or the birds or the animals we come across. So there's things happening other than just movement. So we're building those relationships and knowing that our health is built on relationships that we have with others, our family, and with the land. So when we think of the impact that COVID's had in our communities, because as a project, we haven't been able to go out into communities since last March. And so we know, because of what we were seeing already before COVID hit, that our communities are challenged with diabetes and challenged with access to care, challenged with access to specialists. So we look at it now and say, what is it looking like? And we're really trying to prepare now for what's to come as we have to navigate this new environment of providing care to our communities at this moment. So we've been connecting with communities by phone, and the uptake hasn't been good. We've been trying to connect with use of community radio and providing some interviews or responding to interviews on radio. We've done that in a couple communities. And then actually considering now using Facebook, because a lot of people have access to Facebook, to do some education around caring for ourselves during this time. And we're just working on looking at how we can provide virtual care in the communities. I know we have access to telehealth and off of our laptops, but it's at the other end, it's the connectivity to communities. That would be a barrier for some communities, if all our communities aren't connected well to the internet. And then just the availability of the tools. So do families have access to computer, access to iPhones, access to iPads? So one of the things that we're considering is actually purchasing some of those tools for communities to have all of our communities have Aboriginal Diabetes Initiative workers. So they have community-based workers that we can work with to try and set up some appointments, with recognizing that some of the community centers limited access because of the code red that we're under right now, and the situation, of course, is a little worse up north in northern Manitoba right now. But we're trying to recognize the barriers that the clients might face, recognize the barriers that the system might face at the community level, and some of the barriers that we face here regionally. And I know from the stories that I've heard, from the teachings I've received from elders, that a lot of the answers lie within community and always have lied in community. When I talk with researchers, and have dabbled in some research myself with physicians out here, it is about recognizing that we have, as First Nations, have always done research. We just never called it research, but anything that's been done in our communities has always been looked at as a community. What do we need to do better? How do we address situations? And communities have done it for time immemorial. We recognize the strengths from our teachings, the strengths around being there for each other and supporting each other, the strengths how being connected to the land does provide health and is integral to our being connected to the animals and the plant life. Recognizing that the rates of diabetes that we're seeing today are impacts from what we've been through as First Nations. So we have to recognize that when we bring all that back, that it's there that we will find health. It is there that we find wellness. And when we look at the impact of diabetes on our children and our youth, when we see complications early in young adulthood, we know that taking it further down to the beginning of the life course. So knowing that when moms are pregnant, that we need to be there to support them. Knowing that what moms feel during pregnancy actually impacts the growth and development of the fetus or the baby. So those are things that we have been taught by our grandmothers. And I think those things were interrupted. So as First Nations people, we have to listen to our grandmothers and really, really recognize that it starts from when we are young adults, I guess, going into parenthood, that we have those teachings that takes us into adulthood to support healthy pregnancy. And that's for dealing with it across the lifespan, and the support that we need from childhood, youth, adulthood, and then when we're elder, and then even preparing, we're going into the next journey. As a community, though, we have those solutions. I think it's the time and creating the opportunity, which sometimes we don't have. And I think shaping, I know we get deliverables that we have to respond to when we get our funding, but we have to shift it so that they can see it through our eyes and recognize that this is some of the work that we need to do, and it is about doing what we used to do.
Oh, thank you, Lorraine. Thank you so much. I'm hearing parallels already in what all of you are saying, whether coming from a clinical or a traditional perspective, about recognizing the importance of culture and recognizing the importance of sharing knowledge and connecting and communicating. And I'm so glad to hear that. I know Lindsay's going to chime in a moment here. I do know that Grandmother Renee and Dr. Harris may have to step out very shortly, so I want to offer you both an opportunity to respond with any last words before we move on to Lindsay.
I will always defer to grandmother first.
Thank you. It is so true. And that's what we were sharing yesterday with the group, rekindling our fire. And that's exactly what you were talking about, rekindling our fire, our knowledge and our wisdom of being well, remembering how stories played a very important role, remember when. And I always like that story, how we were taught when we were going through hard times about bone soup. I said, we've forgotten how to save the bones, because that's where all the nutrient was in a long time ago, with all with the hunters we saved those bones was to make the soups, and we're in this time right now we are supposed to be making soups. There is and there's still a lot of those plant lives, like even we need to return back to those plant life that original people have already ate, and we just have to bring that in back into our diets. This is why we're having to have feasts, is to have our bodies reconnect to those original foods that we used to eat, without the salt and without the milk and without the sugar. All those foods that we used to have, we had sweeteners, we had all these things to make it very appetizing, and we just need to remember when we also went through lean times in the past. We've had epidemics, we have pandemics, and all throughout generations, and each one had to learn their call. They had to recall, how did we get through this before? How did the grandmothers get through this before? And so now the knowledge is returning back to preparing. And teas are, people are saying there's not food out there. Well, most of the food will come in a liquid form, and that's why we go with soup. So teas are very, very good, and all those plants are in your community. They're around you. So these are the foods that you can use, but I know some of them have been contaminated very much. And so one of the things is that I always say, in ceremony, we always treat the food with sacredness. So when you do that, it remembers their instructions again. It's just like us, the broken spirit people. We have to restore their spirit. And so this is one of the ways that we would do in ceremony, was restore the spirit of that food, so that this is why food came from the sky world, was to show us how to be well. And it was to all these foods like beans, all these foods that don't need refrigeration. These are the ones that we're going to have to return back to. So I want to say thank you.
Grandmother Renee.
Yeah, before I head off, just a couple of comments. I think that, one of the things, I've had the honor and privilege of working with many communities across the country. And one of the things that has always struck me consistently is the resilience, determination, and courage, particularly that comes out of individuals and communities, and the strength that communities bring. And I believe that you will all get through this. You will see the other side of the door and get back on your feet. And you just need to believe that, and hopefully find ways and means within your communities to help do this. I'll have my staff person send to you, Jessica, the information that people can look at online of the programs, the registry, the CEDAR registry that we've developed, as well as the programs that work with communities to help them figure out how to get out of these challenges, how to overcome and feel confident that they are making a difference, because these times can make us all feel completely overwhelmed. And I think Canadians, Indigenous and non-Indigenous alike, share this in common right now. We're all feeling so desperate and lost and alone and isolated. But I'm optimistic. I know that we will overcome, and with small pieces of success, it's what renews our confidence. So I will share that with you, Jessica, and you can send it out to participants. And now you know how to find me. So I'm happy to provide whatever knowledge and experience that I have to support my Indigenous fellow humans across the country.
Oh, wonderful. We're always thrilled to have access to more resources, and I will look forward to seeing that cross my inbox, and we'll make sure it gets sent out to those who joined us today. I'm already getting some thank yous there in the Q&A for you. So thank you, Dr. Harris. Thank you, Grandmother Renee, for spending this part of the morning with us. I hope we'll have you both back soon, and I hope you go on to have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. Don't forget, spring is coming.
It is.
Okay, bye now, everyone.
Bye. Thank you. With that, I'd like to turn things over to Lindsay. Lindsay, thank you for patiently waiting for your turn. You've got some wonderful thoughts to follow here, but perhaps you can speak a little bit about your area of expertise, which of course has to do with foot care and that ever important preventive piece of the puzzle. Very important.
Yes. Uh-huh. Ani buju, Lindsay Ndijnakas, Jiba Naning and Dunjaba, Hanishnabekwe. Good morning, everyone. It's a good morning. The sun is shining. And I'm the foot care coordinator for IDHC, and I'm just so grateful to be here. I'm reaching out to you on the traditional lands of the Atikamekshig First Nation, part of the Robinson Huron Treaty. And I'm in my home in Sudbury, and just really happy to be able to be here and connect with you all, as this is now the way that we can connect. And just listening to the community members and helpers that have joined us today, there are a few things that sort of have come into my mind when I'm thinking about the challenges that we have seen since last March. And when I look at first from, just the overall challenge, I see it as a loss of connection as we know it. And not only the connection with other people as frontline workers and supports, but also it's other connections that we would often turn to. With everything of our being, there's always an energy out and an energy in. There's always that exchange happening. And the energy reciprocity has been restricted in so many ways. And us as our physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional being, we have experienced a disconnect in our, I would say, regular ways of being able to have that movement of energy. And with that, I've seen there's certain times where sometimes people feel like there's so much energy building up and they don't know what they can do about it, or there's that loss of energy where you're experiencing that burnout and there's just, you're giving so much, but how are you taking it in? And on a whole, I think the most challenge that I see with that is there is a transition period that we've been going through, and the challenge part is moving through that transition onto the new ways, and maybe even returning back to ways that we may not have been practicing, our ways of connecting with each other. Our virtual presence has been there with each other. Telephone, I find sometimes is a good way to connect. However, not a lot of people are on that. And I often start thinking back, okay, well, what did we do before? How did we connect before? And it's not just with people, but with everything. And I think putting on a new sort of cap of framework to look at ways to connect with other people, ways to connect with our other spiritual helpers, our physical helpers, to look to ways that we can strengthen those connections with each other. I find within a spiritual connection, going out every day and giving gratitude and just speaking out and allowing my energy to be spoken out into the world as to what I am grateful for, what I am thankful for, as as an Anishinaabe on this Shkagamekwe land. What am I thankful for? And allow my energy to come out and to speak to that in order to help balance the energy within myself, so that I can try to have that energy now for to encourage others to have that healing and to have that energy balance, because there has been that shift of energy. And it brings me back to my last fast with my healer, who I have been learning from since 2013 in regards to spiritual healing, spiritual development, and plant medicine therapy. And she told me then, Lindsay, a shift is coming and you need to be prepared. And within this shift that comes, by doing what you're doing now with these ceremonies and these fastings, you are preparing yourself for what's to come. And when it does come, you will need to turn to the gifts that have been given to you. Pull those gifts out on the spiritual, mental, emotional, physical part of your being. Pull those gifts out and turn to those gifts and use those gifts. And at times like this, we have to remember, I shouldn't say have to, it is good to remember those gifts that we have been given throughout our journey here, such as things of the power of our words, our smudge, our teas to warm that energy inside, and other ways that we can practice our own self-care. Because when it comes to us as if we are frontline workers and we are caring for others, and it doesn't matter whether you're even a frontline worker within your work, you, just by the nature of who you are and your connection to your people, you are a helper. And when you are a helper, you have to help yourself first. And when you have those gifts within you, to remember what those gifts are, to practice those gifts will help to restore those that energy that might be low. And within that reflection, know that you can also reach out to help and to have help be given to you. And so in times of being alone, as we self-isolate, I often turn to those things and think to myself, what are those things? And whatever works for you, whether it be a vision board that you can turn to and say, yes, I remember that I have this gift that I can turn to. I say those good words. I have my smudge. I have my medicines that I can turn to, my teas, those sort of things to turn to, as well as knowing what supports are there that you can turn to as well. And the thing with the energy is most often people are motivated externally. And because of COVID, that has restricted a lot of external motivation. That face-to-face isn't necessarily happening anymore. And we are transitioning to other ways to motivate. And if there is no other ways, or we do not see that, oftentimes that is when our wellness within our emotional, mental, spiritual, physical starts to experience a strain. And it's hard to pull ourselves out of that sort of slump. And as frontline workers, I often turn to ways to do motivational interviewing, whether it just be a chat over the phone, to see how can we help to stimulate motivation within our community and clients to practice self-care. What is important? Let's dig that back up internally. And externally, by finding ways to build that sense of community again. Oftentimes with these virtual presence, I miss seeing everyone in the room. I miss seeing your faces. I miss being able to read your energy and to have that energy exchange. So thinking of ways that we can continue to do that, be maybe a teleconference where we can at least hear each other. Or what Lorraine was saying is often we're moving now towards that Facebook presence where we can see each other. That really makes a difference when you're looking to have that energy exchange and stimulate that motivation for that growth of your own energy to continue to be well and practice wellness within your life. And just sort of shifting gears here from just overall as a person and as a helper, some of the things that I've seen that we can focus on of those 4 areas of ourselves and the gifts that we've been given is how to ground and grow, how to ground ourselves and how to ground our community and how to grow with that. And I see it moving in different ways, particularly with IDHC and the foot care program and the knowledge program. We have worked hard to try to ground our frontline workers in a way of giving them more to root down to in capacity building, with offering training and support to give them more tools in their toolbox. And then other communities as well, giving more tools to pull on their toolbox by offering other areas of training and education. And then growing from there, being able to stretch out and to increase our connections with other people, and to be able to find ways to move through the times that we find ourselves in. And I think coming up with those connections that was mentioned before is that network to turn to, and building that network and sharing with each other those connections and contacts. And that's something that the Foot Care program is looking to do by overcoming those barriers, is building capacity with the individual to learn more about that wellness on alternative ways of communication, and then also building capacity with frontline workers so that we have more support than we know, and you don't necessarily have to be a frontline worker to receive more education to help support community in a way to try to battle that frontline worker burnout.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been a number of things that the Foot Care program has done specifically regarding diabetes and foot care, but I just wanted to touch upon a little bit more of the person as a helper and the people, because that's really, when you get down to the heart of it, it starts there and then it grows into the different strategies that we can implement.
Thank you, Lindsay. McGuetch, Lindsay. I just keep hearing this word connection, and I keep hearing these references to culture and to grounding, and I really think that is so relevant. I think when we think of the challenges, and I think what really starts to get people down often, those frontline workers that can't be out there doing physical clinical care. They can't be supporting with glucose checks. They can't be supporting with foot care or foot monitoring. I think that's a real stressor for a lot of people. But what I'm hearing here in both of what you two are saying and what Grandmother Renee and Dr. Harris were saying is that, sometimes it's about more than just that clinical piece, and that reaching out and being there and supporting people and empowering people to take care of themselves more holistically might actually be an inroads into supporting people to move on to those more clinical checks in these difficult times when people have so much to contend with. And also the phone. I think we sometimes forget the phone when we talk about all this technology, that sometimes the research actually suggests that sometimes it's easier to build trust on the phone than over Zoom. Is what the research actually shows there. So that's a tool not to forget. Lorraine, did you have anything to respond to in what Lindsay's been saying, or in terms of those things such as connections or accessing resources or using technology?
Well, with some of the things that she said is all around our 4 aspects of our own being, right? As providers, and that's all important, and it's taking care of ourselves physically. So recognizing that we need to sleep, knowing when to turn off the TV and stop watching the news around COVID, knowing when to just be with your family and your connections. So really taking care of self is important. And I know for myself initially when COVID hit in March, I gave a lot of hours trying to understand what was going to happen and how it was going to impact our communities. So right now we have 5 nurses that work specifically in our project that go out into 20 communities. So because we were seeing a poor uptake in connecting to communities and we had the time, what we did was the nurses volunteered to go into communities and provide rapid response. So they wouldn't go out every week. We recognized that there's no way you could go out every week. So they would probably go out maybe 1 week of the month and actually do the contact swabbing using the Gen X and the other point of care instruments to identify if there was COVID. So that in itself was stressful because it was a new way to go. But we've done point of care testing for a long time. But it was a way of them feeling like they were actually helping again, right? So it meant shifting things a little, but it also meant making sure that when they came back out that we were debriefing with them. So since really COVID started, we've been really having our weekly meetings consistently as staff and always being there for connection with each other, even after hours. If someone wants to send a joke to make everybody laugh, I mean, we do that too. And we started using Microsoft Teams and have chat for either the nurses, and then we have a senior management team where we have that also, and then we have a general where we all can connect, and we've been communicating that way. Like I could sit here and I'll see messages come in. Hey, people are communicating with each other. So we found more communication as instead of just our meetings that we may have had it bi-weekly or sometimes quarterly, but knowing that that was allowed. And then of course, most of us are working from home and have been for quite some time. There's times when we go into office, but there was also that flexibility, recognizing that some of us have children at home or grandchildren that you had to either get to school or help assist remotely so they can remote learn. So being flexible as a workplace was important too. And being okay to express your emotions. I mean, if you felt angry, that was okay. We weren't pounding each other down, but if you're mad at a situation, or if you're sad about a situation, or if you're overwhelmed, those tears are healing. It's healthy to cry. And then it's more healthy to laugh, right? I mean, those are all emotions are healthy. And my grandmother Renee said, keeping them in doesn't fare well for our physical being. So just remembering too ceremonies, smudging the prayers that we say each day and before we go to bed, and those are universal, and our communities depend on it a lot. Some ceremonies there were some restrictions there, like how many should be together in a room, and whether we practice the singing, the drumming with the singing, and the pandemic response coordination team did develop some guidelines to guide people on how to conduct themselves during COVID, right? Even with funerals was a challenge because we found we were getting positive COVIDs from large gatherings, and was just relaying that message to community, but trying to recognize that time is a tough time for anybody when things are going well, right? So how it amplified with COVID. When we so it's really taking care of all aspects of your being, right? Spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical, and recognizing how when you're out of balance. And I've learned that most from IDHC at one of your conferences, that importance of measuring where you're at in each aspect to see where you're out of balance. And that's a good exercise, and we should all be doing that, even as practitioners. And we're not. I mean, stress can get us in a hard way also, right? So I think that recognizing the needs of community by listening, by watching. During this time, I saw a lot of communities have, just to keep people at home and isolated, I saw communities would have their Facebook challenges. So they might have singing contests on Facebook. They might have digging contests. They might have contests around Christmas time. It was about decorating your yard or whatever. So we're trying to keep people really still mentally engaged with each other and emotionally engaged with family and doing things outside or you'd see fishing derbies and things like that occur. Those are all healthy things. Anytime I see there's an opportunity to connect to land, I think is a healthy step, and I would encourage that from our communities. Have those fishing derbies. You can socially distance, and then the teachings around sharing what we take from the land. So some of those things are really healthy responses for communities.
Thank you. Oh, it's been so wonderful, everyone, this morning, and to get these really uplifting messages. I think I needed it today. I think we're all, many of us, in a similar boat as we move through this pandemic and through the challenges that come along.
I just want to say one more thing that came across my mind as I was listening. So when COVID came and we were getting some monies to support communities, we would make packages. So communities where they might get a thermometer, they might get cleaning supplies and whatever. And as I was sitting here, I'm going, one of the most important things that I believe people can do too for their managing their diabetes is to know what their blood sugars are. And have we checked with community members to make sure they have access to the supplies they need, glucometers and strips. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be a time now to have those packages made where we can deliver some healthy, maybe some recipes and some content like for soup and some strips and some glucometers, and say, here, this is how important it is, and invite them to a webinar or in community radio or Facebook, whatever they use for communities. And that just came to me as we were sitting here, because we need that encouragement for people to recognize that they have to take care of themselves.
Absolutely.
Yes, and if I could just weigh in there, Lorraine, like what you speak of is really important, because as we isolate at home and as community members, it actually brings a smile to your face when you got a little package coming to the door and you open it up and it's a gift of so many different things. And when COVID first happened back in March, we had to pivot a lot of our outreach services at IDHC. And one of those that we would do is we would go into the community and we would educate and provide information and have cooking classes with community members. Well, we had to go back to the drawing board in essence and say, okay, how do we do this now? And what our diabetes wellness workers started is doing these cooking classes and shipping out these bundles of your dry goods and a recipe to work off of, so that you could make your own just from what was shipped to you, and then just a few things that you would have in your household. So those were some of the bundles that we started to ship out to community members, just to assist those people in being able to have those elements of that good nutritious food and ways to, again, move and cook that energy up for your body, and participate as well in these social gatherings where you're learning about the healthy food that we can eat to help live well and prevent the complications of diabetes. And within the foot care program, where we used to travel into communities and provide outreach services, and part of that was our self-care resources, where we would run education and teach community members how to do self-assess inspections and how to perform daily foot care. We weren't able to do that. We weren't able to physically go there. So what we started implementing is a broad promotion of our resources that can be ordered for those who, for those organizations and partners that do the drop-offs or that are wanting to do those deliveries. And we also, regarding our ongoing clients that would normally receive that physical preventative treatment every 6 to 8 weeks, we implemented a consultation virtual visit initiative where all of our foot care nurses would do those consultation calls and touch base with those clients to see how are they doing at home, what are their needs right now, and perform like a needs assessment on whether they need to be referred out to a site. And then what elements do they need from our program in regards to self-care resources to better assist them at home. And we started sending out those packages for them, all that have those key tools to perform their own self-inspection and to do their own self-care. So in a way, trying our best to support the clients while they're at home by connecting with them and sending them all those good things that they can open up and to start using in their daily care. And we found that that's been very successful, even though the landscape has changed. You know, every time you turn around, the landscape's changed again, and now we're in another lockdown. So we kind of have to take that in and see how we can roll with that. So, and we found that connecting by telephone and by virtual and Facebook has been very successful. And then also sending out those care packages have also been very impactful with community members. And where those community members have, said that they have these certain concerns, the foot care nurse would then refer them out. And the other aspect that we've also looked at in our pivot in response to COVID is what can we do right now and how can we strengthen that? So of our subsidy sites, there are areas that we looked at where we could really strengthen those sites. And we started reaching out to new providers and to new areas of support that we knew in that community or close to that community, we need some support. So let's see what's there and how we can get them connected to our program. Of those chiropodist foot care nurses, offer training for them so that they are trained in cultural safety training, and also provide training for those foot care nurses for PPE through our program, so that we know that they have all of the training that's necessary. And then we also started connecting back with a lot of our older partners that we have connected in the past, just to see how's it going, what's new with you, how can we connect and how can we support. And I think what I'm seeing right now, just from the comments and the conversation, is building a good, strong network of not only resources and education to assist the clients via mail-outs of videos and printable resources and actual tangible tools, but also connection virtually for education, bringing in supports so that they can offer more teachings on nutrition, so that you don't have that burnout just from one person having to do all that, and expanding our connections to other providers that we may not even know are there or may have forgotten about.
Thank you, Lindsay. I think we're going to move towards wrapping up here. I've been dropping some connection details, the registration details for some of our programs into the chat box. I put our Facebook page, and I will speak to those in a moment. But Lorraine, would you like to see us out with any last words? Is there anything you wanted to finish up with before we go today?
Other than as providers, and when I work regionally and the nurses go out to community, my comments or suggestions to them is to remember to listen to what's going on in community, to be the ears and the eyes. Communities may need support other than what they are saying, so watch or be observant. I think the most important thing is to listen to community, and I think during this time, even more, and we're seeing it across the country, is the issue about racism and how sometimes it's challenging for clients to access care. And to recognize that sometimes we hear care is being accessed late. People are coming in very sick. And that is some fears around that and around getting COVID, right? Because a lot of our communities too had COVID come in through clients coming out for a medical visit in the city and then going back and bringing back COVID. So we have to make sure that we're addressing those fears and educating around that. But to listen to clients when they're, and being open for them to seek assistance to navigate the system. Because during this, I mean, it was difficult before. And during COVID, it's even a bit more difficult. So really listening to clients is what I would encourage others. And to help others, you need to really make sure that we take care of ourselves. It's very easy to get bogged down and to burn out. So recognizing what those symptoms are, and it's okay to pull back and rejuvenate and then come back, and that's okay. And not to feel shame in that. That's how I'd like to end. And I've learned a lot also listening. So thank you for having me on. And it is always a good opportunity for me to see Grandma Renee. I saw her at your conference and had some discussion with her, and she's amazing. And I really take to her teaching. So thank you so much. My privilege.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Lorraine, for joining us. Thank you, Lindsay, for joining us.